Hello, today we are going to talk a little bit about the author of this week's play, The Camp, Griselda Gambaro, and the concept of the theater of violence, which is a bit complex. So to start out, Griselda Gambaro is an Argentine author who has written novels, plays, short stories, essays, and quite a bit more. She was born in 1928 on July 24th and is currently 92 years old. She lived in exile from Spain in the years 1977 to 1980. And she's arguably Argentina's most celebrated playwright. The themes of her writing often concern the political violence in Argentina. And even that which she wrote before seemed to foreshadow the events that would become Argentina's dirty war. The Camp is a great example of that. I mean, great is a relative word, but it definitely foreshadows some of the events that took place during Argentina's dirty war. I'm not going to go into that too much in this video here, but you can look up Argentina's dirty war and find quite a bit of information on that. One common theme that Gambaro has in her writing is the idea of the desaparecidos, or the disappeared, and the attempts to recover these individuals. And although her writing offers social and political commentary on Argentina, her work reaches beyond the national and makes universal statements about power dynamics, human nature, and the role of women in the larger social order. So while her work is based on her experiences and the cultural, socio-political experiences in Argentina, it does reach across boundaries, borders to apply to wide audiences. Now, Gambaro's characters include both victims and oppressors in situations in which the victim is unable to overcome the cruelty of the oppressor. So we're not talking happy endings here, right? She often focuses on the roots of violence and its spheres of influence, as well as how violence may be perceived, masked, or even denied. Her style involves Black humor and focuses on the absurdities of Argentina's political situations. Her work never is set in any particular time or place, and she never directly identifies Argentina, right? The Camp doesn't take place in Argentina, but we can read it and understand the parallels that she is making. The themes of abuse mirror the reality in Argentina from the 1960s through the Dirty War and up into the 1980s. Now, her plays are not always linear or logical, but they're almost always terrifying. And I would say that The Camp is no exception. It's scary, it's stressful, it's anxiety-inducing in moments. You don't know what's going to happen to these characters. You don't understand why what's happening to them is happening. And you just kind of have to go along for that ride with our characters. And Gambaro's theater is considered an outgrowth of an Argentine theater genre known as el grotesco criollo. And this was created in the 1920s by Armando Discepolo. Gambaro herself states that Argentine plays, quote, deal directly with political and social content. And so she doesn't actually see a connection with absurdist theater, which her work is often connected with. And she also states, quote, all of our theater is more or less political, and we are all political writers in one way or another. There is always implicit or explicit political content in our work, though it is not a goal. So I think this is a really fascinating way of looking at this idea of theater of violence, that it is often associated with something socio-political, at least in Gambaro's work. Gambaro is a founding member of the Teatro Abierto, which was a theater group made up of previously prohibited Argentine playwrights who wished to shed themselves of the shame of having been shut out. And she participated in this group for a handful of years and was able to stage some productions, although there were attacks on the spaces where they performed their work. It was not a clean and easy group. So Teatro Abierto is a fascinating group that I would encourage you to look more into as well. Now, Gambaro's theater could be considered theater of violence for what I think is the obvious reason of including physical, emotional, or psychological violence. In the camp, we definitely see the psychological violence, and we allude to some of the physical violence as well. Gambaro warns that we must learn to see violence in its many guises and recognize our complicit role in maintaining it. And I think that's why she puts it in her theater. She wants to put it in people's faces to make them see it and acknowledge it. While theater often serves as a form of escape for audience members, Gambaro's approach, and that of others who write in a similar vein, forces the people to acknowledge the cruel violence of the world around us. So you can look into different types of theater throughout Latin America. There's the Teatro de Crueldad, the Teatro Criollo. There's a handful of types, but this idea of theater of violence is something that really fits well with Gambaro's writing experiences. So I hope this helps a little bit as you're working through the play and sort of understanding and experiencing the events as they unfold around our characters. Thanks.